Absolutely.
Resuming debate, reprise du débat, the honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise once again to speak on Bill 262, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. I want to acknowledge that we're gathered here on the traditional Algonquin lands, and I want to first begin by thanking my good friend and the sponsor of the bill, the honourable member from Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavut, EU, for his lifelong commitment to ensuring Indigenous rights are upheld as human rights. The last several months, the Indigenous Affairs Committee have been studying this bill. We have heard from a number of different organizations. In fact, we've had 11 meetings to discuss this bill, and we've heard from over 70 witnesses, and all of them have outlined the different aspects of UNDRIP, the 46 different articles that make up this declaration. And we have, in those hearings, we were able to hear from experts who really called on us as a parliament to enact this legislation. And I think it is that the power over the past, not just the 2 or 3 months that the committee studied, but over the past 30 years, where UNDRIP has become a very important call to action from many governments where there are strong and where there are Indigenous peoples. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this year is the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I would argue the last 70 years, while we professed as countries to enact human rights legislation, it's fairly clear to say that we failed with respect to the Indigenous peoples. You know, we had in 1982 the advent of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that allowed for a number of court cases to advance the rights of Indigenous peoples. And in the last 20 years, as my good friend opposite has outlined, we were able to engage in a multilateral forum and come together with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And regrettably, when it was signed off, our government at that time did not sign on to the UN Declaration. But notwithstanding that, I think much work was done in Canada by many members of civil society, many parliamentarians, and many academics to ensure that UNDRIP was part of Canadian law. And the conversations we've had, my friend talked about going across the country and consulting. Last fall, our committee, the Standing Committee on Indigenous Affairs, we traveled across the country, and the witnesses who were there all spoke of the need for UNDRIP to be part of Canadian law. And I'm glad that earlier this year, or late last year, we agreed to support Bill 262, and I'm very proud to say that we're very much able to speak on this today to ensure that 262 becomes law. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this is not a one-off. This is part of a broader conversation, broader set of commitments that our government has undertaken. There is, as you know, a committee of ministers who are reviewing legislation respect to its effects on Indigenous peoples. We are also coming with a broader framework on the recognition of rights that was announced earlier. And that will become legislation, as indicated by our Minister of Crown Indigenous Services today. That too will become legislation and part of Canadian law. So this broader framework includes, as a central piece, the work of our friend opposite, and 262 becoming Canadian law. And I just want to outline a couple of very important issues with respect to this particular legislation. It has 46 articles, and it essentially defines the minimum standards for survival, dignity, and the well-being of Indigenous peoples in the world. It is part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's Call to Action 43 and 44, and I'm glad to say that we are here today, and historic vote could take place tomorrow where we once and for all enshrine this into our laws. Before I finish, Mr. Speaker, I just want to call your attention to one matter, and that is about having a national consensus. I do believe that this is the moment in our history, this is the moment in our world today where we can actually come together on something so fundamentally important to Canadians, so fundamentally important to Indigenous peoples, and that is to reconcile. And 262 is an essential component of it. And what I would implore, Mr. Speaker, is to have our friends opposite, the friends in the Conservative Party, who have done the right thing on a number of fronts in the past several months, most notably on their vote on the Opposition Day motion brought by the NDP with respect to an apology from the church. I want them to repeat that this time around. Make sure that we continue on this path towards reconciliation. Make sure that people know, Indigenous people know, that we are together on this. This is not a Liberal issue, this is not an NDP issue, but this is a Canadian issue. And in order for us to do that, it's very important that the Conservative Party support this, and I do implore members opposite to reflect on this and to support this vote tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank once again my good friend from James Bay. Thank you.